tattoo artists of Reddit. What was the weirdest / most disturbing tattoo a customer wanted? When I worked as a tattoo artist, a guy wanted us to tattoo his name on his infant baby because, as he put it, "She's trying to say that's not my son." We threatened to call the guardy because what the actual hell? We wouldn't tattoo anyone under the age of 18, even with parental consent, and we certainly wouldn't tattoo a baby. I had to laugh when I saw the episode of Archer where he and the baby get tattoos. It was a grim reminder. I got a tattoo of Diddler Bob on my ass. To those unaware, Diddler Bob is the character from the episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob finds a pencil and draws a copy of himself. The copy becomes alive and ends up being evil. While I was getting it, I asked the tattoo artist, "So what's the dumbest tattoo you've ever given someone?" His reply, "Honestly, probably this one. I've had it for a few years and have no regrets. Diddler Bob will live on underneath my boxers for years to come. Mihoi Manoi." Several years ago I tattooed the words Jeffrey Dahmer in shitty scratchy writing on a girl's neck for her 18th birthday. She had been coming into the shop a lot with her friends as they got tattooed and talking about it. She had the letters drawn up exactly as she wanted them and everything. The answer was always the same: no fucking way. When she finally turned 18 she came in with a few friends and asked again. I told her politely to fuck off with her shenanigans. A few minutes later her friend told her he could just tattoo it with the gun he got off eBay at home. I made the hard choice to do the tattoo to ensure that it wouldn't get infected or be all scarred up if she ever decided to have it removed. Not a tattoo artist, but the guy I went to for many years once told me that he had a customer come in, 20 years old and completely sober and very serious, wanting him to tattoo birds flying out of her vagina up to her lower stomach. He told her he wasn't willing to tattoo genitalia to get out of it, and she said, "Okay, I'll just take an infinity sign on the back of my neck instead." He saved her from a lot of awkward questions and a lot of regret later in life. I have a buddy that has his anus tattooed and got it when he was high on shrooms. It's an eyeball. God help whichever tattoo artist had to do that one. Obligatory not a tattoo artist, but I did a series of renovations at a buddy's shop over a couple years. I was something like a skilled groupie. Strangest request I saw on it. Guy comes in, looking like a goth thug. He says his mom just died recently, and he wants to get a portrait done in her honor. He pulls out an 8x10 black and white nude pic of his mom. I heard my buddy ask a question like, "Was your mom a burlesque dancer?" The guy, deadpan, says, "Nah, man, nah, she was a stay-at-home mom." The finished piece was actually amazing, but clearly that family was a bit different than mine. Strangest request I saw turned away. Guy came in with a small group, maybe 4 or 5 people in their early 20s. He wanted a few disembodied dicks floating over a naked woman, spraying her with cum. That guy had a giant dick tattooed on his forearm. A couple came in. They were your typical white thugs, wearing gang colors just outside the bad part of town, and trying to be hard. They were fighting about something, and she kept dropping the N-bomb on him. We, the workers at the shop, were all wildly uncomfortable. Anyway, the guy wanted the Silver Surfer on his ribs. He had a picture, a price was negotiated, and he returned with his girl a couple days later for his appointment. I was laying tile in the room next to the room this guy's getting tattooed in. Normally, I would hear nothing, but not this time. This guy was screaming. I went in to check on them, just barged in. Completely inappropriate behavior on my end. Honestly, I was terrified that something awful had happened to my friend. My buddy was trying to maintain a straight face and coach the guy through, but the screams continued. The girlfriend was absolutely berating this guy and mocking him. Eventually, the guy fainted and had to be revived with smelling salts. That was the end of the season. Somewhere out there is a guy with a half-finished Silver Surfer on his ribs and an awful memory. I asked one this question while watching him tattoo my best friend. He said that a guy came in and asked for Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street on the bottoms of his big toes, one on each foot. I had a pair of dominatrix sisters ask me to tattoo their live-in slave for his birthday as a surprise. It was their names in Chinese, at the base of his cock. They had specifically requested me as I fit into the fetish category of the slave. Being an East Asian lady tattooer, I was to be paid triple for my time, but had one request, that I tattoo him at their studio. dressed as a dominatrix, while he was tied up bondage style. When I got to their location, it was really sketchy as it was in a random warehouse in a bad part of town. But once I walked through the red door, it was very tastefully decorated with cages hanging from the ceiling along with the chandeliers. They had me dress up in their clothes as we were the same size, while the slave got ready in his gear, none the wiser. When he was ready, after some sort of ceremony where they whipped him for a while, they told him his birthday surprise. He was so excited he was erect by the time I had my station ready. They used to be nurses, so they had the sterile equipment already, hence an easy setup. The ladies tied him up on a padded table and stretched out the area to be tattooed by weighing down his cock and balls with rope and weights. After the tattoo was done, they thanked me for my services, paid me triple along with a hefty tip, and I was on my way. All in all, 10/10ths would do it again. Guy in my town did a touch up on a Holocaust survivor. One of the guys I served with, they were from a really fucked up area of the south, had a client come in to have his SS tattoo touched up in the 70s. He did it, and they turned the check into the FBI. Caught a war criminal that day. Another story was a guy that had all these weird names he wanted tattooed on his inner thigh. Turns out they were the names of several hookers that had been murdered, and his dad was able to call the cops. Some of the names were for people that hasn't even been reported missing. Guy never got caught. My wife is a tattoo artist. She had a woman come in and ask her to lighten up her lady parts. The client thought they were too dark. After some talk, my wife agreed. They got everything ready, prepared, shaved, etc. She touches the woman's bits with the needle and she just screams. Can't do it. So this woman has a slightly pink little dot on her now. It's the weirdest. My tattoo artist once shared this story of this girl who wanted a rose tattooed around her anus. He refused, naturally, and she whined for a bit before asking him to instead tattoo sweet little thing across her lower back, tramp stamp style. He again refused and kicked her out of the shop. In his words, he wasn't going to deal with that level of crazy for that long. I was apprenticing with my dad at his tattoo parlor, and on this particular day I had nothing to do, so I was just cleaning and answering calls. A 50-something-year-old man came in wearing denim shorts and thongs, sandals, with a whiffer beater on and the most magnificent mullet. He asked about finishing a tattoo he had gotten in Thailand. I asked him to show me, and when he did I couldn't even comprehend what was happening with it. It was a full back piece of a koala with one foot on the ground and the other on a fallen bottle of VB, holding a tattered Australian flag up in one hand, and shooting an AK-47 into the distance with the AO. The koala also had the Southern Cross tattered on its chest. I referred him to another artist, and after they spoke he left. I haven't seen him since. All in all, a very weird encounter with the most boggin Aussie you could think of. My brother is a tattoo artist and refused to tattoo 2 small pot leaves above my other brother's thumbs. He later got it done by a friend. They look terrible and he wishes he had never done it. He also got a ski mask tattooed behind his ear. My brother said yes to that one because of how bad the pot leaves turned out. Not an artist, but the artist I see said he has a guy come in and get naked Disney princesses tattooed all over his body. Like think topless Little Mermaid or naked Pocahontas. Then gets upset when people complain about them being visible when kids are around. A friend who's a tattoo artist once told me about a guy who came in to have his own face tattooed onto his chest. His reasoning was, even if he got old, he could get chicks by showing what he looked like. Needless to say, when I told my dad about this, he beat me up with a bunch of jumper cables. Not an artist, but my best friend is. He sent me a snap of a girl with the Batman logo above her vagina with the quote "The Bat Cave." I immediately knew who it was and died of laughter. Now every man in town has visited the Bat Cave. Obligatory not a tattoo artist, but earlier today my best friend got a tattoo of Vet doing a line of coke off his long finger. She also has a tattoo of Chinese symbols which literally translates to cheesy garlic bread. Lol, a couple got Kevin Bacon's face on a piece of bacon on their asses. It was actually awesome though tbh, and they were super nice people. Not an artist, but I have a tattoo of a dick with a smiley face tattooed on my dick. The artist I found was so excited and told me that she had been waiting ages to tattoo a dick. Regularly messages me saying, that people ask her about her most memorable tattoo, and that it's mine. I had this dude come in with his wife and he wanted to get a cum rag he got from some whorehouse done realistically. He even brought the cum rag with him. It was in some glass container, haha. Tattoo artist here. While on a canoe trip with my friends we met a man who was enjoying the river on his kayak. We were all stopped at a small shore and the man commented on how many tattoos we all had. My friends all instinctively pointed to me and said, "She's a tattoo artist." This is not a thing that I like people to know in my leisure time, because I then get sucked into a lengthy conversation about the person's cousin's brother's aunt who watched Ink Masters once and wants a tattoo. Anyway, my friends knew this and did it anyway, and the man started telling me that he wants his wife to get a tattoo. The idea he began to tell me was nothing I would ever want a tattoo or ever would, but it's the closest I've ever come to the weirdest tattoo I've ever done. He described a butterfly on her vagina. Pretty much he explained that when she were to pull apart the lips of her vagina, the inside she wanted tattooed like butterfly wings, so her vagina looked just like a butterfly when spread apart. That was the most awkward conversation of my life, and my friends enjoyed every second of it.